Man and fire, geez, that's old. That's an attraction that not everybody's got it, but if you've got it, you either light them or you use it. Yeah, I don't light them unless I need to use one. So I could have quite easily been a pyromaniac, I suppose. Just light fires for fun. No, it's the fire. It's, I don't know, it's the simplicity of what it is. It's being able to produce something quite functional from dirt, from what most people walk over every day and don't pay any regard to whatsoever. Iron ore, so what? Well, look around you. Iron, if we hadn't have worked iron out, we wouldn't be having this conversation. That's what it means. So it's a pretty important part of our history. And I just particularly like the Japanese styles of blades. The inspiration came from seeing my first Japanese sword and the beauty entailed in that blade. It started in China with the swords. They went to Korea, the technology. Then it went to Japan, and the Japanese took it and refined it to what we know it is today. Mr. Nakahata is a government-registered sword maker. He was taught by his father. He was his father's apprentice. He's been making swords for 41 years. And for me to find out if what I had was any good, I had to send it to someone like him, because there's no one in this country really who could give me the same degree of expertise as he could. He's like 4th or 5th generation sword maker. His father's father made swords, so he's the real item. This guy, he's not a Johnny come lately. I sent a small blade called a kiridashi to him, which was a 10-fold piece, which gave it approximately 1,000 layers. A 10-fold piece is okay for domestic knives and small using blades like this kiridashi. It's like the equivalent of a Western Stanley knife, this kiridashi. He saw that I was pretty passionate about what I was doing, and it was, what I was doing, producing this stuff, which is a bit like sending ice to Eskimos. But after he saw the blade, it affected him so much that he decided to write a 3-page letter to me. But I was blown out by the letter. I didn't expect that at all. And when he comments that he made, it was sort of like, oh, very humbling. He's happy to have a friend in Australia, as he wrote. He was quite taken with the fact that I could be bothered to do it, I think. The most satisfying part of this process to me is the fact that by simply blending the 4 elements, earth, wind, fire and water, I can produce a very usable material without the age of modern technology. The process required to firstly make the steel and then forge a sword hasn't changed for over 2,000 years. This contact for me is brilliant, it means that I can get information, the right information about the material and what it is and what it isn't. How I run this one here is directly from him, by his thoughts, his dimensions, and they're very simple, and he gave them to me, and I've done it, keeping in the back of my mind not to blow too much wind into it, which is the main one. A lot of variables here, a lot of stuff happens, there's a lot of stuff that's out of your control. I was saying earlier about the fire being, you can't really control the fire. Well, you can't. You can set it up to a certain degree and make it blow at a certain pace. but then the dynamics of that actual fire, you've got to keep on the ball to make it balance. Too much fire, not enough air. Too much air, not enough fire. Two common mistakes that happen, and one and both will do damage. So you got to get the really, apart from the charcoal, all sort of revolving around the charcoal. The rest of it revolves around your ability to run your fire properly, to get the dynamics of the furnace correct, so it consumes the right amount in that half-hour period before it gets charged again. I put 3 pounds of iron sand into the fire and then top it up with charcoal. And that goes on every 20 minutes for 22 hours. So you have to be there all the time doing it. It's not something that you can run on remote. I run mine for 24 hours, is the longest one so far. The commercial ones run for up to 72 hours, but they make a piece that weighs 2 tonnes. They put 13 tonnes of iron sand, they put 30 tonnes of charcoal, and they make 2 tonnes of steel. I put half a tonne of charcoal and 250 pounds of iron sand, and I make 60 pounds, which is a pretty good, for me that's a pretty good return. It all comes down to basically time and heat. That's the simplest way to put it, time and heat. And if you get enough of each, you'll produce something really nice. If you don't, you'll get a product either side of that. But they've worked it out, somewhere between 1,000 and 1,350 you'll make a grade of steel suitable for making tamahagene, to make swords.
Oh, yeah. Big one. Big one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Ooh.
We got a bar that we can actually.
What a look at that. The outside of it.
Mike,
Hey?
check out that bit.
Ha! That's good.
That's just
Beautiful.
Wait on. How's this?
The steel's going to be good quality, so it's really good to see it come flying out the end, you know?
Yeah?
So organic, so basic. You don't need any modern technology to do it. Like, I make a concession, as I've said before, I use electricity to run the blowers that fuel the furnace, but then slaves are hard to convince to stand there and pump bellows for 40 hours. You could probably, I could get enough people interested to do it. It'd be good to do it once, to do one. Do a 20-hour one and have enough people there, get them going, charge them up the right way. That's cool. That's the tool. Look at that piece. Yes. Large piece of tamahagene.
Wow.
Now, Mr. Nakahara, I'll send him that bit.
You know what? I show him a picture of that. But tell him you poke the shit out of the fire and use heaps of water.
That's beautiful. That's about.
Watch the shoe.
That's about 20 pounds worth just there. Without going into long, drawn-out metallurgical explanations about why it looks like it does when it's made in the furnace, it comes in semi. It's unhomogeneous, You have sections of it high carbon, sections of it low, and the surface is quite hellacious. It's quite looks like the surface of a make-believe planet, for example. Lots of spikes and lumps and air pockets and holes.
Whoa, what's happening?
Oh, you are going to be pleased about this.
Oh, look at that. Good. The significance of charcoal with all of this, the making of the metal and the making and the consequent processing of the bloom, all revolves around charcoal because it's carbon rich, and to obtain the bloom in the first place you must smelt the iron sand in a carbon rich atmosphere. When you're working the bloom in the forge and then consequently into billets and blades, once again it's carbon rich and it's very clean, no phosphorus, no sulphur, pure, clean fuel source. And the better quality I can make it, the better quality, the more consistent quality steel that you make. If you have a poor, it's like any of this, if you use poor materials to begin with, if you don't use the most pure iron you can get your hands on, or the best charcoal you can possibly either obtain or make yourself, your product won't be as good. Looks alright, but we won't know until we get it. Don't hit it too hard, that's all. Just gonna work the centre. Just go tap you guys. Just gentle. That's it. Ah! Woohoo! Yeah, the folding of the steel is basically to wash it clean of any impurity that's left in it, and the excess slag is taken out, and it also sets up the grain structure of your steel, and that can vary depending how you hammer it and how hot you get it over the process. You have to keep this in a certain heat range, otherwise you'll bugger it. The steel is protected by covering it with clay most of the time when you're welding, but when you're forging it, you make provision to protect it with the fire more so. You watch it in the fire and it gets to a certain point and just goes like that, sticks to itself, and you lift it out and you carefully drive out any excess slag and mud from inside it. Once you get to a certain stage with this, it just becomes like a piece of, it's never a completely homogeneous piece because of the content of itself is soft and hard within itself. It's not one structure all the way through. That's what makes it so good. You beat those lumpy pieces down into flat plates. You find the high carbon sections of the bloom and flatten them out, and then they're broken up into smaller pieces which will display the carbon content of the material. Take another piece of high carbon bloom and flatten it out, make a plate with it, and stack all the small wafers you've made from the other piece onto that plate, and they'll be all the high carbon content of the blade, which will make it go hard in water at the end of the process. And that some 3 pound of wafers is welded onto a plate that weighs about 2 pound. The whole lot covered in paper, clay and rice hulls, and put in the fire and fused together, and that's the beginning of the actual making of the steel, like in any sort of recognisable form, in blocks. From there, that first welding, you've just consolidated all that 3 pound of small broken up pieces together, one lump, and then 10 folds will give you that purity of 1,000 laminations. The actual folding of that block, that massive pieces, each time is, once again, you're cleaning that steel and you're fusing it more to itself. Each fold, each heat you take and fold it, it consolidates that material to itself. I gave myself 10 years to get it together. This is the 9th year. Year 9. I'm aiming to produce a functioning sword that will eventually be appraised by a Japanese sword appraiser and given papers. And if they do that, if they give it papers, that will be like my diploma at the end of the course.